Well, this is like launching a rocket. We've got a new countdown. That's fantastic. That noise you hear, I got to get my doorbell fixed, okay? Yeah, we got a guest. Open it up, and guess who? Your newest winner on the start of the Grand Slam season. Congratulations, Brad Gushue. How are you, Brad?
Good, and yourself?
Yeah, I'm good. You know, we had, knowing you were coming on, we had a little discussion about how you're going to get from North Bay down back home for Thanksgiving dinner. Here's the options we had. He's going to fly to Sudbury, fly down to Toronto, and then get east. The other one was drive to Toronto or fly. The other one was drive to Ottawa or fly to Ottawa and somehow go through Quebec City or something. So how did you get home in time for Thanksgiving dinner from North Bay?
Yeah, right after the game, we drove down to Toronto. By that time, all the flights to St. John's had already left. So we overnighted and took the first flight out on yesterday morning. So long trip home, but got home in time for dinner and yeah, it's nice to be home for a few days. I'm back on the road actually on Friday again. So it's a short trip home.
I gotta say, Brad, when I sent you a text that morning, I sent it at 5:30 a.m. and you got back to me in like a second. Well, what?
I don't sleep anymore, Kevin. It's I'm either in a plane or getting ready to curl. I haven't got much sleep the last few weeks. A lot of travel, a lot of travel in the next few weeks as well. We're going to do a camp up in Grand Prairie with our team. That's where Jeff is. That's his hometown. So we're going to go up there early and prepare for that. I got to head to Halifax for an Eastlink event on Friday. And then after all that's done, we get home for a couple of days, and then we turn around and go to Calgary for the Pan Continental. So a busy couple of weeks.
Yeah, no kidding. What last time we talked to you, Brad, did you knock out your MBA? Have you were in the middle of writing exams, and so I had a note here. I said, did this guy get a master's in business in the meantime?
Yeah, I finished that up. I guess it would be last January now. So exciting to be done. It was a great experience. Haven't been able to put it to use as much as I'd like as of yet, but that I'm sure that'll come at some point down the road once I hang up the shoes.
Yeah. Before we get to Kevin, it's hard to believe you have downtime when you hear what you're doing. But what do you do when you're not curling, Brad? When you completely get away from it to decompress, and how do you spend your downtime, if there is any?
Yeah, it doesn't happen as much as I'd like, but we got a cabin that I like to spend a lot of time at, and kayak and hike, just get outdoors and kind of do stuff that doesn't take a whole lot of thought. That's kind of what I like to do. Obviously, spending time with my girls is an important part of it, and but other than that, yeah, that's about it. I'd love to play more golf if I had the chance. I got to play actually a couple rounds last week, just before we headed off to North Bay. We got to play the Mississauga Club, which was amazing. And it was just nice to be back out on the links. But hopefully in the years to come, there's going to be a few more rounds of golf in my future.
What's your handicap?
It's not what it used to be. I would say I'd probably play off a 6 or 7, which is good for most people. But I played competitive golf as a teenager. I played in a couple of Canadian amateurs and Canadian juniors.
Oh, so, no kidding.
It's frustrating for me now. I get over a shot and I know I can hit it, or I know I used to be able to hit it, and just assume I can pull it off, and it never comes off anymore. So it's pretty frustrating.
We all know that one.
Getting old. Let's get to some curling talk, Kevin.
Well, first of all, congratulations. Huge win against somebody you'd had a little trouble beating lately in Nik Edin. But I wanted to talk to you about the first end. Probably as good of an end of curling as I've seen in years and years. So many fancy shots. We're calling them trick shots on TV because it's ridiculous that both of your teams would even play them. First end of a curling game. And if you remember your conversation when you went to throw your last one, because he had you in trouble, but you said, well, no, but hang on. If I go to the back 4 foot here, his other rock, and if he happened to take it out, you would have stole 2. But you put it about 18 inches behind it. And by doing that, you said, yeah, but now he's got to be careful. And I'd like to hear, first of all, your thoughts on that end, because it was one of the best ends I've ever seen in my life. But the thoughts on your last shot, putting that rock where you did, which I think caused Nik to miss his last.
Yeah, I'll talk about the shot first. I think we just wanted to put that in his eye. And when you're playing that shot as a skip, it's great if you get two. You're probably more often going to get one or give up a steal because you're going to be cautious about hitting it too far on the high side and taking your own out. So it was just a matter of putting it in his eye and putting it in his thought. Like, I don't think there was a place where we could go where we weren't going to give him a shot for two. Just wanted to give him one that was going to make him think the most and maybe throw it a little bit defensively, which ultimately he did.
Hang on, Brad. Yeah, do you think you would have played the run back, or would you have played the draw for one to make sure you're 1-0?
Draw for one. Yeah, I would have played.
Yeah,
the draw
me too. I wondered about that.
Nicholas is probably a better hitter than I am, and probably leans towards that. But to me, getting one in the first end, it's a big momentum swing, even in the first end when you get off to a 1-0 start as opposed to being down 1-0. So, that was a tough shot. I was surprised he took it on just because, like I said, I probably would have played the draw. But I wasn't unhappy when he was playing it because I thought the likelihood of a steal was probably greater than giving up two. To your other point about the first end, really, we went out with the mentality of just kind of let's attack. We watched Nicholas from the side when we were on the sheet next to him in one of the other games, and they played it very defensively, very wide open. And Rasmus was making double peels, and Oscar was making the same things. And we just looked over especially when they were playing Dunstone, and it was just wide open. And we're like, if we get into that style of game against that team, they're going to have success. And we knew that from last year. That's kind of how they beat us, just kind of keeping things open and clear, getting the hammer early and kind of controlling the game. So we decided we were just going to attack. And that's why you've seen the double centers quite often was just to junk it up against those guys and maybe get into a draw game where, I think we probably have a small advantage over them.
Sure. Hey, Warren, go ahead.
Well, congratulations as well, Brad. Well done. And I think we were chuckling here before the taping started about the seventh end and the shot that Nik Edin chose to play versus a relatively, I think, easy shot to get a two, to put two up going home, versus trying the circus shot for probably four that I don't think was there. What do you think of that whole thing? What do you think was going through his mind, and what was going through your mind?
I think he was just a little hopeful that it would be there. When I looked at it and the rock settled, I was 99.9% confident it was either going to dead jam on a red or come back and take the yellow. When he made the call to initially play the hit, my thoughts were get in the hack and throw this really quick so you don't change your mind. Because I felt really good that it was either going to be one for us or one for him, which, in that situation was good. Whereas if he played the tap, which I think was the easier shot or probably the shot we would have played, I think he makes that, let's say 75, 80% of the time, at least, if not higher. All of a sudden we're down two and our odds of winning that game get reduced heavily. So, we were fortunate he made that call. The shot was never there. I don't think you could ever hit it in a way that it was going to miss that yellow rock. So fortunate for us, he made that call.
Yeah, that was one we'll remember most of the year. Let's talk about your team for a bit. You've got a new player, EJ. Things seem to be working out pretty well with him, without a doubt. But he's replacing Brent Gallant. What's the difference from your point of view of Brent to EJ as far as how they play and how they work in with your team?
Yeah, I think obviously both of them are world-class seconds, two of the best seconds in the world. But they differ in their styles and in some of their strengths. And I'm not saying that the others are weakness. It's just you probably rank EJ probably as a little bit better hitter or big weight hitter as opposed to Brett, where Brett probably in the soft game is probably a little bit higher than EJ. And on the sweeping side, Brett is known very well for his judging, where EJ is known very much for his just power. So different strengths. And that's one thing, I have to adjust to as a skip is playing to those strengths. So that's going to be, something I'm kind of excited about because, to have a weapon like EJ being able to throw a sub 6 second peel, you can move a lot of rocks, and he throws it so accurately as well. So it's going to allow me to play some different shots where Brett, we may have played a little bit more of a finesse shot. We might play a bit more of a power shot with EJ. And as far as EJ fitting in on our team, he's been incredible. We've ton of fun on the ice, ton of fun off the ice. There's some adjustments that we have to make. If you watch EJ when he threw in years past, he would tend to slide a little wider of the broom than what we would. So our lines are a little bit different. So if I put the broom in a spot for Mark, we're getting some different paths. So adjusting to that and making those changes, it's going to take some time. And, I know EJ was getting frustrated a little bit at times in North Bay with that. But to be honest, that's probably a 6-month process that we're going to have to undergo. And there's going to be times when he's going to be able to nail that, and other times where old tendencies are going to creep back in. So, not saying that he throws it wrong. It's just we throw it different. And, we could all switch to him or he could switch to us. Unfortunately, 3 versus 1, he's got to switch to us. So
you win.
But he's so athletic. He's going to be able to make the adjustment. It's just a matter of time.
Now, I noticed on a couple of occasions that maybe EJ's ability to carve is a little better than you thought it was, and all of a sudden you're screaming for him to make it curl, and then all of a sudden it's curling too much. Was that the case, really? Or
absolutely. He's made me look really good at calling line, and he's made me look really bad at calling line. And there's some times where he's been able to save rocks for us because he can hold it so straight. And other times where, if we were a little outside the line, I called on him to start, carving the rock, and he was able to really carve it and manipulate it, which, to have that ability, it kind of shocked me. And early on in the week, I missed a bunch of Mark's line calls because I overcalled some of the carves. Later on in the week, I got a little bit more patient and probably undercalled. But getting used to that is something that, I'm going to have to do over the next, number of events. But it's definitely an asset to have, a guy that's that powerful. It's pretty impressive.
Brad, you were saying as we were shooting the breeze before you came on, and you said something very interesting about the overall event in North Bay, that there was a bunch of smoke and mirrors. And that I think the way you put it was, I've played way better and lost games. So talk about that and how you pulled it off then when you weren't at your best.
Yeah, I think as a team, we probably didn't play our best or up to all of our expectations. What we found is in a lot of games, we made a lot of timely shots, and we got a lot of timely misses out of our opponents as well. And, we didn't, with the exception of the semifinal, we didn't blow anybody out. It was kind of one of these positional games where you're trying to get the hammer coming home tied up or even one down with. And we were able to accomplish that and pulled them all out. I've certainly played some Grand Slams where we played a whole lot better as a team and, lost a quarterfinal or a semifinal when you come up against someone that's just real hot. Mm-hmm. So, I'll take it. I'm not gonna apologize for it because, like I said, there's been a lot of events where we played a whole lot better and didn't get the results that we got this week.
One thing that I've talked to a couple of I'm going to say new teams, Brad, like teams with new players. And one thing that's been fairly consistent, I'd like to hear your thoughts on it, and that's the draw to the button. You mentioned that EJ's line is different. And I hear that from other teams with new players. They're saying, well, we're just having a heck of a time early in the game because you have to go one side, the other team does the other side, to try to get the path for all 4 players to be the same path. Now, in your case, you only have one new player.
Yeah.
But to get that path for that player keened up so that gives EJ the best chance to hit the button so you can get hammer. I noticed in your games that you weren't covering as much as maybe usual. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that because it's one of the most important things in curling now is the draw of the button.
Yeah, and it's a very nuanced thing like you're talking about. And really it comes down to, most teams, like a team like Bruce Mallett and Nicholas and our teams in the past, we threw very similar that you'd actually get 8 rocks going down the path of the button. So by the time it came time for me to draw the button or whoever's turn it was, you knew what speed it was because you had got it to its peak speed. So it wasn't going to get any faster. If anything, it was probably going to get a little bit slower. What you find with some of the new teams and bringing a new player in is even just a difference of 4 to 6 inches in the path. all of a sudden you're not getting that continuous rock going down where you're getting the rock up to speed. So what we found was each time we went to throw the draw the button, it was still a little bit quick. We had to throw it a little softer than what we threw the rock before. And when it's like that, it's still a little bit of a guess, because is it going to be 2 feet quicker, or is it going to be 4 feet quicker, or is it going to be 1 feet? So you're just have that level of uncertainty. And when you're talking about millimeters, which is all it was in our draw the button against Nik, I think it was I think it was less than, I think it was 8 or 9 millimeters. You might know better, but
Yep, it was 1.2 and 2.2 centimeters.
yeah, well, there you go. So it wasn't very much. So something as minute as that has a big impact, and that's the level that we're at with the top teams right now. Is that 2.2 centimeters? It's huge, and just getting those continuous rocks down a path, it's a big advantage for a team that can do that.
I want to ask you a question on another topic, and it's the Brier. And earlier in the show, we were talking about this, the fact that less than 10 years ago, the Brier was 12 teams, and it was 14, and it was 15, and it was 16. Now it's 18. Well, we don't know, because we asked Curling Canada a couple of weeks ago what it's going to be this year. Is it 16 or 18? And they'd said, well, we're still looking at it. So we'd like your opinion. What do you think it should be? 16, 18, or maybe 20?
I'd like 2, because I know we're going to be one of them, and then it's just a matter of meeting another team. In all honesty, I've changed on this a little bit. I was a traditionalist where I liked just having the provinces there. I think there is an opportunity now for our game to evolve a little bit further and get the top teams in there and allow them to showcase themselves and their brand. I'm not a lover of the wild card. Like, let's just get rid of the wild card and stop calling them wild card teams. Let's get our top teams in there and call them, Team Botcher, Team Cooey, Team Gushue. Let them wear the uniforms that they wear each and every week and play against the provinces and see what happens. Like, I think there's a real good opportunity for us to showcase our top teams and still make the event what it's always been, which has been a celebration of curling. It's opportunity for provinces to play. Whether you're, I don't even want to say, a club team that happens to make it out of a province, or whether you're a team that's playing week in, week out on the Grand Slam of curling circuit, it shouldn't matter. So I'm hoping it's probably 18. I'd love to see the format change or the entry change a little bit and just get rid of the wild cards and just call them what they are,
I think, because if you look at the positioning right now of the top 5 teams in the country after we've had a very early part of the season so far, would be 2 out of Alberta, 2 out of Manitoba, and you guys.
Yeah.
And where we sit now, even with 18 teams, probably 2 of those teams aren't going to be in the Brier. And like you said, that's, as we sit today, looks like the top 5. And I think at any given time, the top 5 teams in the country need to be in the Canadian Championship. So I think whatever they've got to do to make that happen is what they need to look at from my point of view.
Yeah, absolutely. And gone are the days where we can afford to send our 5th, 6th, 7th best team to a nationals or to a worlds or an Olympics. We need to be sending our best teams. And to do that, we need to have our best teams in the event. So, if we got to find a way to make sure that those top 4, 5, 6 teams are in there no matter what.
What about the time? Do you think there's enough time between the Brier and the World Championship for a team to get ready the way it is now?
No.
So there's another problem.
We've gone through that process this summer with a consulting firm that Curling Canada hired and spoke to all the top teams. And I know what our team said. I can't speak for every other team, but we were pretty adamant that there has to be more time between that. Even a couple weeks makes a huge difference. And then you go to the Olympics, it's the same thing. We need more time to prepare, and your life gets thrown in total chaos. Like between the Brier and the Worlds, it's 3 weeks. For a lot of athletes, you got to get time away from work. You got to try and book flights for your family who want to come down and support you. You got to recover just from the Brier. Like what we went through at the Brier this year, we were absolutely exhausted when we came home. Obviously Mark had COVID and a couple of us caught COVID after that. We weren't recovered when we went down to Vegas to start out that World Championship.
We don't want to take too much more of your time, but I do want to ask you one thing that I think might be looking pretty clear. We'll see what you think. You're playing kind of a not too busy of a schedule this year. You and I talked about that, I'm not sure, a week or two ago. And but you came out, and you downplayed how you played. I thought you played very well this week in North Bay. I got to watch most of your games. Your thoughts on being able to only play a few events, like maybe one a month or sometimes two a month, but getting lots of break between, throwing some rocks, mentally sharp when you go into an event. Your thoughts on maybe might even be a positive, or at least from behind my eyes, being ready to play. You already know how to curl, but now you're not fatigued. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it is a positive. I think there's a number of factors that have allowed us to do this. One being that we're number one in the world, so we know that we're going to be able to get in the slams. We didn't have to play early in the year to make sure we qualify because we knew that was going to happen. Even going right up to the Champions Cup, we know we're in that because we won the Champions Cup last year. And then the other side is, we have experience and that's a positive, but we also have age, which can be a negative. So, we're not going to forget how to curl when we get out on the ice, but we want to make sure that we're 100% when we get to the big events. And those are the slams and the Brier. And I can speak from experience in the past that there's been many times we went into those events feeling fatigue and run down. Certainly the schedule that we have this year is going to allow us to be fresh and prepared to go in there. Again, we're not going to forget how to curl. I think the potential disadvantages for us is being a new team. We're not going to get as many as much game experience as probably what we would like. But we're hoping that the amount of training camps and the amount of work we're going to do together as a team is going to overcome that. So we're going to be, have our communication down. We're going to have our lines of delivery down. And then when we get to those big events, then it's just a matter of letting the competitive juices come out and trying to figure out how to win games.
One thing, hey, sorry, Jimmy, but one thing that we talked about on the broadcast, and I just thought of it now. Caleb was at the event, Caleb Flaxey, as your coach. Do you still have your Newfoundland coach and Jules also, or what is your coaching? What's the bench look like for you?
Yeah, we've got a nice support staff behind us. So Caleb's going to be joining us at most events this year. Not all of them, but most. Jules is going to be Alberta, wherever we can drive. Jules no longer wants to go through the airport process and all of that stuff, which I don't blame him, because what we had to go through the last 2 years, particularly going over the China for the Olympics, I think that discouraged him from doing that anytime in the future. But he's going to be there in Grand Prairie with us, which we're excited about. And then Jeff Thomas is going to be working with us, when we're home, particularly myself and Mark, who are going to be here the most. But he's been already working with EJ and Jeff, and we'll continue to do that over the next year. And then we have Aaron McGowan, who's our sports psych as well. So, I'm a big believer in find people that know more than you and get them to help you. So that's kind of what we're trying to do, and get people that know what they're doing, can support us, can take some of the slack away from from us. Jules is so good with the rocks, and Caleb is kind of a younger Jules, to be quite honest. He keeps track of them, keeps a lot of data that we can use. And, Jeff has been watching our deliveries, Mark and mine, since we were 18 years old. So he knows when we're getting a little out of whack and can kind of get us back in line.
Brad, you are the barometer for the curling world, and certainly all the competitors. They wait to hear what you have to say about changes, what you expect in the future for the sport of curling. You had mentioned earlier that Curling Canada did reach out to you and ask about the short time between the Brier and the Worlds. Was there any other conversations, Brad, that you did have with them about issues in curling, or that you would like to see, or things you brought up and are waiting for an answer from them?
Yeah, there was a lot. The conversation that we had with the consulting firm was about 2 hours long. So there was quite a bit where, I spoke for most of it. So there's a lot of ideas that I have and things that I think can be implemented. I alluded to one of them. I think the process for the Brier going forward, I think we need to find a way for our top teams to continue to showcase themselves. And the big issue that I see right now is there seems to be a focus on wanting to fund maybe the top 3 teams in the men's and women's. And I can understand that, because generally that's who's going to represent us at the Worlds and at the Olympics. The issue that I take with that, and I say this as being one of those top 3 teams, is what happens to the next level of teams, and where's the people that are going to come up and push the Team Gushues, Team Botchers, Team Coolies, Team Carruthers, whatever team you want to throw in there. And my idea is, you know what, don't give us all this funding. Like, give us the opportunity to sell ourselves. Like, let us wear our sponsors when we're at the Brier, because we can make, get more sponsorship with that. Allow us to wear our sponsorship when we're at the trials, and allow us to build our brands and maximize that as much as possible. Then take all the money you were going to give to us, and let's give it to the next tier, or the younger tier, not necessarily the next tier, but the younger guys, the Tyler Tardys that are coming up through the world, the young guys that are going to replace, ourselves and Team Cooey and some of the older guys over the next 4, 8, 12 years. That's going to allow us to be sustainable over the long term, because my fear right now is if we fund the top 3 teams and we fund them heavily, is you're going to get a drop off of the next teams, and they're no longer going to feel they're going to be competitive, and they're no longer going to sign up for events, and our events are going to start going away. And it's going to have this trickle down effect that's going to leave a gaping hole for about 8 years until another young team comes up and takes the reins from, us old farts.
Do you think the other challenge is that you've got, just to throw out some countries, Japan, Korea, Scotland, Sweden, Switzerland, where you've virtually got full-time players that are doing pretty much nothing but curl? That's another issue?
Yeah, that's a huge issue. I think, we're not comparing apples to apples with what we're doing in Canada to them. So how do we get to the level where we can allow our athletes to be full-time? So one way is to fund maybe 3 teams and allow them to do it. Is that going to change, my life or Kevin Cooey's life, and allow us, we're probably not going to go that route at this stage in our career and just become a full-time curler. But if you allow us to build our brand and increase our sponsorship and increase the exposure we can provide our sponsors, that might provide us enough freedom to allow us to do a little bit more. And then you can use that money then to push up from the bottom. But yeah, we're competing against full-time curlers right now, and that's something that we have to consider. And as curling fans, you have to be aware of when you see us playing Nicholas or Bruce or Carey playing Sylvana or Hasselborg. Like, it's not necessarily a fair comparison when they're getting funded heavily from their association. But my model is just a little bit different. But my concern right now is that we end up becoming like a lot of Olympic sports in Canada, where we fund the top few and then there's nothing really coming behind them. So, I just want to have something that's sustainable, that in 4 years' time, when you're likely going to see a lot of retirements amongst a lot of our top curlers on the men's and women's side, that there's another level of athletes that are going to come up and be able to fill that hole, I guess, that's going to be created.
I'll tell you what, and I don't say this sarcastically, I don't think in all my time of doing sports and sports interviews and talking about events that someone has stepped up and said, look, we don't want that kind of money. We don't want that, and give it to the lessers. I've never heard that, and I think you're going to be onto something with other national sports. Yeah, that's and
to be honest, it's not going to change our lives, and it's not going to change our process at this point. Mm-hmm. Now, granted, if they're not going to give it to anybody else, we'll take it. but for the future and sustainability of high performance in our sport, I think it could be allocated better somewhere else. And
good for you. That makes you exceptional. I think that you're doing that. Well done.
Now, in return, it's not all just being nice here, Jim, and giving money away. I think as top teams, we want the ability to wear our brands and to wear our sponsors and showcase them, because that's where we can make up the potential revenue loss from not having.
Yeah, fair enough, but not out of Curling Canada's pocket.
Exactly.
Brad Gushue has been our guest, and thanks a lot, Brad, for coming on. Congratulations, you're out of the starting blocks. Well done. You're on your way up to Grand Prairie next week. You're going to play, and also, did you say you got a camp? Is that you and your team practicing for?
Yeah, our team, we're going to get together before all the slams. We're getting together for, anywhere from 2 to 4 days before we're playing each one, just to get more training together on the ice and get more comfortable with each other, because we aren't playing as many events as others. So that's how we're going to try and grow as a team is through those training
Well
camps.
done. We got to find the picture you said I think your wife took of you when Edin did try that triple.
I think Sportsnet would have it there. My daughter showed it to me, and it's kind of meme worthy, I guess. I didn't realize I was that expressive when he did it.
Says, please don't change your mind.
You played. Yeah. We found out you played in the Canadian Amateur. That's the equivalent of a guy having a 2-shot lead on the 18th hole on a par 5. And it's an easy layup, except he decides to try and rip a 3 with a 240 carry over a water. You're like, yeah, give that a whirl.
You're like, just hit it quick.
Yeah, hit it quick. Well done, Brad. Thanks a lot for coming on and telling us all about your team and everything. And we really appreciate it. And good luck the rest of the year. I'm sure we'll talk to you a couple more times before the year's out.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Yep. Thank you.
Thanks, Brad. Good luck.